how do we incorporate all these into our curriculum?
That's my second question. If they, now I'm presenting the field before all of you because that field is giving you some idea about the challenges that we have to encounter as teachers and also as lovers of local knowledge. There are problems, and problems will have to be understood first, and then let us try and do some kind of an exercise for seeking resolutions.
I'm Rani from the Satyasai Institute at Anantapur. Sir, I had doubts on two statements that you made. One is, this is just to seek a little clarification on this. You said knowledge is a biological trait. Would you explain it a little further for me? And the second thing is, you also said a universal acceptance or knowledge that is universally accepted was very limited in the past. But if you look at very commonsensical things like the sun rises in the east or the cow eats grass, they were also commonly accepted universal truths. So I have a doubt about these two statements that you made.
The second one, I think, I quickly respond to that. It's not knowledge as such. It's what you really experience. Sun rises in the east is just an unscientific statement. It is not knowledge, but what you experience. Sun doesn't rise in the east. Sun just rises, that's all. And east is what you experience. And east is such a non-stationary kind of phenomenon. There is no east as such. You can only relatively build directions based on the North Pole, which is universal truth. North Pole of the earth. And based on that, people living in various parts of the globe can have the notion east. What you consider east is west for people beyond that. So it's a relative sort of thing. And then the first question, biological. Homo sapiens sapien is born with neurons and certain neurochemicals capable of cumulative reasoning. It's not sensory perception accepted and naturally responding to that. Human beings have the capability of receiving responses through the six senses, but the results generated in the brain by the neurons vary from experience to experience, and always there is a built-in biological process of storing and revisiting it. Experiential knowledge is stored. A neural network is storing that. And then certain neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin and so on, that they do certain wonderful biochemical functions which you don't find in any other beings, not even in hominids, that they re-examine the stored experiential knowledge, sometimes totally reconstitute. Now, you find an object falling, and immediately there is a priori reasoning about it, facilitated by the neurons, and okay, the mango fell because there was wind. This is the initial knowledge. If there is wind, then it falls. But the same thing can create a different kind of a response in some other people. They would say that he got hit on his head. It was because of his misfortune. Mango fell because he had Kashtagala. And this is also an explanation. But several explanations would be possible, and finally you have Newton talking about this in an entirely different way. It's all because of the gravity. Gravitational power worked, and then mango was ripe enough, and the stem of the mango could not suspend the energy due to the pull by gravity. So it fell. The explanation comes from the Homo sapiens sapien brain, but this is there in the brain as a biologically given property, and experience is not just experience is memorized ontologically. There is an ontology of experience which is recorded, and there is an analytically accessed knowledge component about it that is epistemologically valid, and that is also stored in the brain. And the stored knowledge is revisited by the brain when there is a stimulus by a new experience, and there is comparative understanding, cumulative reasoning, and then the knowledge is improved upon. And again, you have further experience, maybe in the form of interaction with people or reading books and so on, then is further change in that. What is this process? This is the process of production of knowledge. So knowledge production is something biologically given. Human beings are born, Homo sapiens are born with the capability to produce knowledge. If all of us are not producing knowledge independently, we have to blame the way we were indoctrinated in the process of socialization. We don't allow a small baby Homo sapiens sapien to grow without inhibitions. The moment the child examines something, a centipede is moving, the child is getting hold of it, and it whirls around the finger, and the boy is observing. If it is a biting creature, okay, he will cry or she will cry and throw it away. But if it is not, then the boy is watching. But there is mother immediately interfering and there is check. So it comes as a negative sound. The child is prevented to go about investigating. But look at any child. Any Homo sapiens sapien baby is amazingly inquisitive. This inquisitiveness is crushed, destroyed, all because of our intervention. Elders intervene and pour a lot of don'ts. No, don't do that, don't do this. And then girls. No girl is born as a girl in the cultural sense. You have lot of restrictions. A girl should not sit like this. A girl shouldn't be laughing like this. A girl shouldn't be skipping like this. And with the result, you construct culturally a girl out of the female. Female is a biological reality, but the female is converted into a girl, a woman. No woman is born, no girl is born. They are socially manufactured. With the result, you have a non-reactive, quiet kind of. That kind of a feature is not anything biologically given. There are things of that kind.
Very good morning, sir. I'm Kavya from Mount Carmel College. I had one single question. You were talking about local knowledge being converted into scientifically accepted knowledge. But in the process of making it universal, it might lead to certain disastrous effect. For example, even before, take an example of this leather tanning industry, where the knowledge of making leather is restricted only to a certain section of the society. And even if that acquisition of knowledge is concerned, I will restrict it only to that particular section of society, leading to caste system. So how are you going to tackle such situations? So do we have to stop it from making it universal, or should you just restrict it to that section of the society itself? So how are you going to make it universal?
I don't mean to say that it has to be made as an imposition on a particular society. A caste system had its own role in a kind of society of segregation and so on. And various atrocious practices existed in the name of caste and so on. But tanning of the leather, it involves certain practices. And the community which had generations of experience in that would be having certain knowledge. Now, about tanning I have been studying, but if you take the case of a blacksmith who also knew traditionally iron smelting. A traditional blacksmith knew how to distinguish between a hematite-rich granite and ordinary granite. And he knew how to take flakes out of hematite-rich granite, and he had a technique of roasting the flakes and then putting it in a kiln which could produce temperature slightly above 1000 degrees centigrade. Iron will melt and slag will disappear only if you have that high temperature. So regarding the preparation of the kiln, identification of the hematite-rich granite, and then the knowledge about roasting, and also finally use of the crucible for separating slag, the terracotta crucibles were used, and how terracotta crucible helps a certain level of carbonization and then acquisition of quality steel, and also use of charcoal in the kiln. In the process also there is carbonization, and all this led to production of excellent steel. The present metallurgy doesn't have to learn much out of it, but present metallurgy will be able to talk about the kind of understanding people were able to make in those days without science. It's not common sense. Beyond common sense, people were able to go and people were able to produce knowledge. About that we can understand. And then in various cases one will be able to see sustainability in the old practices. Traditional practices would be sustainable, not only because of the quantity that they are restricted, but also because of various practices. The natural capacity of absorbing the waste is always very high in traditional practices. So traditional knowledge system will provide a lot of insights for us in the context of sustainable technology.
Sir, I am Pramod Kumar from Pune Institute of Computer Technology, Pune in Maharashtra. Agreeing to whatever definitions or these things you have said, see, practically it is very difficult because today in the rural areas of my state, that is Maharashtra, huge colleges, universities, and even the schools have come up, and dominated of course by the owners who are, most of them are in the current politics. So their attitude towards education is different, their attitude towards social development is different. Now these students from rural area, when they come to cities, there is a lot of confusion. They are interested to maintain the traditional knowledge there and to get some modified methods to rectify if any rectification is required in their knowledge system. But both the approaches are mismatching. The institutions in the urban areas and the institutions, or rather the schools in rural areas, so these are mismatching, and so the ultimate result is very dismal. And then we have a cry. So while job placement is concerned, so we say we are misfit. So are we going to produce those misfit knowledgeable people or what? So if you could kindly throw some light on this one.
Yeah, it's a very important question with a lot of practical implications. We have to think in terms of the modern world as the techno-capitalist world, wherein new knowledge is both capital and commodity. And all over the world, innovativeness or creativity is being celebrated, and the principal objective of higher education is to make youngsters inquisitive for being creative and innovative. You need excellent kind of education or quality education of world class for enabling youngsters to be productive in the domain of innovativeness. Traditional knowledge or local knowledge is becoming a veritable mine of formulation of hypotheses in the techno-capitalist world. That's the reason why I was referring to patents and intellectual property rights and so on. Intellectual property rights and patents were there in late 19th century. But you have an unusual kind of emphasis on that today. Educated world is obsessed with that. Scientists and technologists are obsessed with the idea of taking patents. People are zealously guarding intellectual property rights. They mean in terms of capital. That is the major reason. As pointed out rightly by a computer specialist, there is mismatch. But this mismatch is there because of the implicit presumption about substitution. There is no question of bringing in local knowledge as a substitute for the latest kind of world level knowledge. You cannot substitute modern knowledge or scientific knowledge or modern technology with traditional technology. A certain new aspects in the domain of technology, certain new aspects in the domain of science can be introduced depending upon hypothetical formulations drawn from local knowledge. As the patents are coming up on one object or the other of the traditional wisdom. It's about everything. I am told even on yoga there are some 11 patents, some 6 of them in Germany. So anything can be patented now. And also intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights have covered the ethnic groups as well now. There is geographic identification. Aramula Kannadi is a kind of metal mirror. It's an alloy metal. It is almost functionally close to a glass mirror. The technology was traditionally known to a group, and the mirror is made at 2 places actually. It might have been made at various places, but one place near Palgad and another place in the Alapi district. These places are now geographically marked, and a share of any use of this, a share of remuneration out of any use of this knowledge will go to these as well. The traditional knowledge is becoming important in that respect, but traditional knowledge is not to substitute modern knowledge or latest knowledge. Traditional technology is not to substitute the latest technology. People will have more employment opportunities. People will have better potential in terms of creativity, innovativeness parameters if they are educated, initiated in local knowledge as well. But tricky issue that we will discuss in the next class. There are a lot of problems in preparing students according